Psychologists say this is what your brain does when it thinks love isn't safe. Let's talk about what actually happens in your mind when love doesn't feel safe. Not cute, not secure, not soft but risky. And why you might pull away, even when you want to be close. 1. Your brain's threat detector goes into overdrive. The amygdala is the part of your brain that handles fear and threat detection. It's like your internal alarm system. Normally, it helps you stay safe from real danger. But in love, it doesn't always know the difference between I'm being chased by a bear and they didn't text back. If you've been hurt before, abandoned, betrayed, or even just left hanging, your amygdala can become hypersensitive. It overreacts to things like a slow reply, a change in tone, or a slightly distant hug. It screams, "This feels familiar," and familiar was painful. Even if the situation is totally different now, your brain still pulls up the same survival playbook and end up reacting to this person like they're that person. 2. Your inner critic starts narrating the whole story. You know that voice, the one that says, "Don't get too comfortable. They're going to leave." That's your brain trying to preempt pain. It believes if it can anticipate the hurt, it can soften the blow. So instead of letting you enjoy the moment, it launches a preemptive strike, often in the form of harsh self-talk. Psychologists call this anticipatory anxiety. Your brain assumes the worst and tries to emotionally prepare you for it. 3. You become hyper-focused on signs of rejection. When love feels unsafe, the brain goes hunting for proof. The slightly shorter text, proof. That night they seemed tired, proof. Them not noticing your haircut, obviously proof. It's called confirmation bias. Once you believe something might be true, like "I'm going to get hurt," your brain filters out everything that contradicts it and owns in on everything that supports it. The worst part? It doesn't even have to be logical. Just emotionally plausible. Even kindness can feel suspicious. 4. You unconsciously test people. This one stings a little, because when part of you doesn't trust that love is safe, you might start subtly testing the people who offer it. You might withdraw to see if they'll chase. Pick fights to see if they'll leave. Say you're fine when you're not, just to find out if they'll dig deeper. It's not manipulative, it's protective. A subconscious way of asking, "Are you really here for me?" without having to say it out loud. But these tests often backfire. They push people away, they create distance. And the very thing you were afraid of, being abandoned, starts to come true. Not because love wasn't safe, but because your brain was scared it wouldn't be. 5. You confuse intensity with connection. When your brain is used to chaotic or inconsistent love, it begins to associate emotional intensity with emotional safety, which is ironic because the opposite should be true. But to a brain trained in turbulence, calm can feel boring. Predictability can feel suspicious. Safety can feel unfamiliar. You might find yourself craving the highs and lows of toxic connections, not because you like drama, but because that's what love has looked like in your past. It's what your nervous system recognizes, what your brain expects, and what it tries to recreate, even if it hurts. 6. Your body responds like it's under threat. Love activates the nervous system, so does fear. When your brain can't tell the difference between the two, your body starts reacting like something's wrong, even if you're just falling for someone who makes you feel seen. You might notice a racing heart, a tight chest, or a sense of restlessness you can't quite explain when they get close to someone emotionally. It's not just nerves, it's your body's way of sounding an alarm based on past experiences. When love isn't wired to feel safe yet, those sensations can be loud, confusing, and hard to sit with. 7. You start self-sabotaging without realizing it. When something feels dangerous, your brain gets creative in avoiding it, even if it is something you deeply want. You might ghost someone you actually like, convince yourself you're better off alone, or downplay your feelings until you don't recognize them anymore. That kind of behavior doesn't always come from fear of love, it often comes from fear of losing love. So you preempt the heartbreak. You take control by backing away before anyone else can. On the surface, it looks like distance. But underneath, it's just a protective mechanism trying to shield your heart from a wound it's known before. 8. You overthink every little things. Falling for someone should feel like freedom, but sometimes it feels like mental gymnastics. Your brain tries to create certainty by analyzing everything: how they said something, what they meant, by a pause, whether you texted too soon or too late. And before you know it, love becomes less about feeling and more about decoding. This is your brain clinging to logic in a space where logic doesn't always apply. It wants to protect you by creating rules, patterns, and guarantees, but love doesn't operate that way. 9. You go numb. And then, sometimes nothing. No anxiety, no overthinking, no longing, just a numb. This is the freeze response, the lesser-known sibling of fight and flight. When the brain feels overwhelmed and can't escape or fix the situation, it shuts down. You might stop feeling anything about them, about you, about love in general. You might say things like, "I just don't care anymore." But often that's not true. You do care. You're just emotionally frozen. That state doesn't last forever. With the right support and self-awareness, you can thaw out. If any of this hit close to home, you're not broken. You're just human, with brain that's learned how to protect itself from emotional danger.